We'll be back from the break. Let's continue with more business today. Now, the police have issued a warning against its officers involved in hiring sniffer dogs as they seek 4.9 billion to purchase 750 more dogs to combat crime. Dr. Mugume Martin, commanded police at the canine unit in Zambia Police Barracks, urged members of the public to report such officers to the nearby police station, noting that the sniffer dogs are provided free of charge. We have more in this report.
Wonderful.
Police has lodged several complaints against some police officers who are using their offices to solicit bribes by hiring out sniffer dogs. Dr. Mugume Martin, commandant police at the canine unit in Zambia Police Barracks, told Smart 24 TV that sniffer dogs services are free and that any officer who hires them will face legal consequences.
I want to assure the members of the public and all the listeners that the police dog service is a free service like any other police service. And whoever hires out a police dog is committing crime of corruption and extortion. Like any other police service, it is a free service. It is an aid to investigations. It helps investigators to look for suspects and recover exhibits. And it is supposed to be a free service done at no cost. And whoever asks you for money to access this service is committing crime. You can report to the authorities.
Dr. Mugume urged the public to report such cases to the nearby authorities for help.
You can report to your nearest police station. You can report to the district police commanders. You can report to PSU of police. You can report to any authority. A case of extortion, a case of corruption, and the one asking for money will be dealt with.
This has come at a time when the Uganda Police Force is seeking 4.968 billion for the procurement of 750 sniffer dogs to expand the force's canine unit in order to fight crime in the country. Rose Nyachikorongo, the chairperson of the Parliament's Defense and Internal Affairs Committee, made the request while presenting the committee's report on the 2023-2024 National Budget Framework paper to the Parliament's Budget Committee.
Yeah, you know, the police are asking for more sniffer dogs. These are the canine dogs that they are going to procure to give to all districts. You know, each district does not have. And so when people go looking for those dogs to catch the thieves and other crimes, they really suffer. They have to get from other districts. So they want a budget where they are going to procure the dogs, but also look after the dogs. And this budget, when you calculate the amount, the number of dogs they want to procure, it means that for the next financial year, if they procure a dog, it will take them 30 million. And that 30 million is for procuring and looking after the dog. Some of you who have dogs, you know what it means looking after the dog. In fact, the dog's budget is more than any budget of the member of the family.
Nyachikorongo defended the expenditures, stating that the dogs are more expensive to feed than human beings and that there is a need for them in all districts of Uganda, and police expect to spend 30 million on each dog.
To cater for those dogs, definitely, you are not going to say that, no, I won't provide food, I won't provide washing it, I won't provide, acaricides, I won't provide treatment for the dogs. So when people talk about the context of procuring a dog, it's not these common dogs, what they call the kakwisis, those ones.
Our dogs, on average, each dog eats about, these large breeds, about 1.1 kilograms a day. So if a dog is eating 1.1 kilograms, which is about 9,000 Uganda shillings, in a month you are talking in excess of 300,000. In a quarter, in excess of 1 million. In a year, you are talking in excess of how much if you multiply. Then there is a cost of maintaining it, medicine. There is a cost of transporting it to the scene of crime. There is a cost of cleaning. There is a cost of paying the one who looks after it. So it is quite expensive to look after a sniffer dog.
Dr. Mugume confirmed that buying and importing in a trained sniffer dog can cost government over 60 million. Despite the fact that Uganda Police Force requires 2.902 trillion, only 823.782 billion have been allotted to it in the National Budget Framework 2023-2024, leaving a financial gap of 2.078 trillion. Pedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now let's look at tourism conservation in Western Uganda. The conservationists and authorities in southwestern Uganda have launched a 10-year project aimed at improving the conservation and management of national parks and other natural resources in their areas. The project dubbed University as a facilitator for community-based sustainable solutions to demographic challenges in southwestern Uganda will be championed by the Mbarara University of Science and Technology, MUST. Let's have more report.
According to Dr. Bernard Twinamasko, the team leader of Cobas project and lecturer at Mbarara University of Science and Technology, they will focus on developing methods to promote the protection of significant national parks in the region, including Bwindi Impenetrable Forest National Park, Mgahinga National Park, Lake Mburu National Park, Simuliki National Park, and Queen Elizabeth National Park, by assuring sound governance standards for the targeted natural reserves. The project will also put an emphasis on enhancing the condition of a few rivers that are close to the targeted natural resources while boosting the locals' resident standards of living.
Particular knowledge and values that can generate alternative livelihoods. For example, the Batwa in the southern sector of Bwindi have been able to come up with a very nice suggestion that we can develop their Batwa forest experience. So we are going to fund the development of a Batwa trail in the southern sector of Bwindi, which is going to be a tourism product that can generate livelihood for the Batwa.
PhD students from Mbarara University will carry out research in selected locations to find feasible answers to the problems there in order to implement the project successfully. Nelson Guma, the chief warden of Bwindi Impenetrable National Park, believes that partners like the Uganda Wildlife Authority would be essential in the project's success.
That it should notify the duty bearer. I think it will make sense to us. So if there is an incident of a crop raid somewhere and a community member has already entered this information, then it should be able to notify a duty bearer somewhere.
Some of the community members in the targeted areas shared with us their expectations of this project.
I agree that it's going to help with the conservation efforts, because the approach, number one, the approach is the involvement of community leaders, the involvement of community, and the involvement of all stakeholders.
Uganda is one of just 3 countries with nearly 50% of the world's known population of endangered mountain gorillas, making it a prominent tourist destination and supporting the fast-growing tourism industry. The travel and tourism industry is estimated to contribute more than 2.5% of Uganda's GDP yearly, but environmentalists warn that if conservation-oriented tactics are not improved, the sector could face severe losses. Mase Katsime, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And in tonight's Coffee Cut, we discuss taxation, pretty much tax incentives. Ronan Howard brings you the Coffee Cut.
Hello, you're welcome to yet again another episode of Coffee Court. My name is Rona Nahabwe, and with me is a Chief Membership Officer Private Sector Foundation Uganda, Mr. Francis Chisilinya, who is going to be talking to us about the cross-cutting areas in ensuring that we have a predictable tax base. You're welcome, Mr. Francis, and say hello to the viewers.
Thank you very much, our viewers of Coffee Court.
Yes. So you mentioned that there are certain cross-cutting areas that the government or the concerned parties need to look at to ensure that we have a predictable or we even hit the target of a tax base. So could you take us to some of those issues?
Yes, as a private sector foundation, there are things we have noted over the years that do not support our drive to increase taxes. And these things affect almost every taxpayer. So that's why we call them cross-cutting. So one of them that we see and is a problem is in terms of the predictability of the taxes. You know, so every year as the budget is being prepared, we are waiting that for a new tax rate. Sometimes it changes, sometimes it doesn't. So it is not predictable. Now, but remember that as business people are making their investments, they really base on certain time frames that are beyond 1 year. So if somebody is to invest in Uganda, they will perhaps look at 5-year spectrum. Now, if tax is going to be changing every year, it means they are not able to plan properly, and therefore it undermines their investments.
Okay.
And in some cases, we have seen situations where somebody decided to invest based on a particular tax rate, but even 1 year after starting the investment, the rate changes, and then the business is undermined significantly. So what we request is that if tax rates are established, they should be known and predictable for some time, maybe for between 4 to 5 years, so that people know that this tax is going to stand, this tax rate is going to stand for the next 5 years, and therefore they plan accordingly. So that is something we think that is important as business, as investors, so that we boost our investment. That's very crucial. Now, the second thing that is a cross-cutting issue is in terms of ensuring that we are all operating at the same level. We have an equal, a level playing field as business people. So sometimes this level playing field is undermined by selective incentives that are doled out, that are given out to certain companies and individuals. So that makes the competitive ground not level and affects the business. So our view is that investment incentives generally are needed to support businesses. But if we are going to issue any investment incentive, it should be applicable to the entire sector players so that all of them are playing on the same playing level, on the same playing field. This will ensure that businesses actually compete fairly and they are able to generate value for the consumers and the country. Unlike today, where incentives are not uniform. So some companies are paying, others are not paying, and in the end, you don't benefit as much as a country from such a policy.
Recently the PSST mentioned that they are going to review the incentives, and I would like to know, what do you think the government bases on before it awards these incentives to these foreigners?
I think apart from those bases that have been published, the others we don't know. But one thing that we know sometimes that are given the basis for incentives is that, for instance, if a company is investing in a hard-to-reach area, like today, if you're investing up country, outside Kampala, there is a stand tax incentive you have. The others, we don't know the basis apart from those that are actually published. And the others is in terms of investment amount, say, if you're investing more than $110 million, you can be given an incentive. If you're investing, that's a sort of thing that is based on figures, not on sectors, is distortionary. And therefore, we applaud the ministry and the PS when they say they are going to look at this again. It is important for us to have a good engagement. Everybody who is concerned, the investors, the business people that are already there, academia, politicians, let us engage on this and then create an investment regime that is going to be supportive and helpful to everybody who is trading.
There's also an issue of favorable tax administration measures. We have seen people, especially in downtown, the marginalized businesses crying out of the ways through which the tax administrator uses to collect taxes.
It's very unfortunate, and it has gone on for long, to the extent that people are so sensitive and so suspicious of URA, meaning that the tax collection measures have actually not been good. They have been punitive instead of being facilitative. So when somebody sees URA, they are not seeing somebody who is coming to be their partner in their business. They're seeing somebody who is coming to be, maybe to undermine their business. That is something that needs to change. So this is a rallying call to URA. It is so important for them, and I know they have moved this direction, to give that face, that human face to tax collection, to be partners to the business people in tax collection, to be facilitative of the tax collection, to be facilitative of the businesses so that they are able to collect taxes. I would like to hear a story where somebody says, until I became URA compliant, my business was failing, but now I'm doing well because I have a partner in URA. But today we hear so many stories where people say, when I registered 14, my business started having problems. Every day URA comes and asks me to pay this, pay that, and therefore my business has failed. We would like that story to change. Let it be the positive story. Thank you.
You see, URA is just a government body that is a tax administrator. Of course, at the end of the day, the government is the bigger person in this. And speaking of cross-cutting areas, URA noted that it intends to hit its target of having 10 million Ugandans collect taxpayers from 3 million to 10 million. How do you think it will be able to, hit that target?
It will. It will hit the target. Why?
But the businesses, most of them are still marginalized. They are still recovering from COVID.
If they decide to use the law, the branch arm of the law the way it is, they will come and they will register it forcefully, and you'll be part of the 10 million. But what damage will they have created by doing that? The 10 million could still be registered, but using the methods that I've talked about that are facilitative, that are from a partnership perspective, a customer care perspective, not using the full force of the law. Otherwise, this they can do. They can just wake up in the streets and say, everybody here must register for taxes. They have the law can allow them to do that. But the implication of that is that you are having a taxpayer that is not supported, that is having all these problems and is not able to pay the taxes. And after paying the taxes, they don't have any more working capital. They're out of business. So another one comes, you do the same thing. That one goes out of business, like that.
The issue of having cars of 9 years, something of mileage, I would like to have clarity. Maybe if you could put more emphasis on it.
I think we used to have a problem years ago. I think in this current budget, this current year's budget, where government has said that if you import a vehicle that is 9 years and more, you have to pay the taxes and clear this vehicle at the port of entry, which is Mombasa. So which meant that people who are not able to pay when the vehicle comes in, the vehicle would be held in Mombasa, and therefore it will be collecting a damage, and therefore the costs of importation were quite high. But I'm happy to say that this matter was resolved, so all vehicles now can be cleared in Kampala as it used to be, so which was helpful.
Another thing I would like you to briefly hint on is the value-added tax on subcontractors in the petroleum activities.
Yes, the local content in the petroleum sector is well developed, but it has a gap. The gap is if you're a supplier to the oil sector, you are VAT exempted. But the problem is that if you're subcontracted, you are not. So if, for instance, if you're Total, or Sinop, you write a contract with me, okay? I'm your supplier. So for me, I'm not supposed to pay VAT. But for some goods that I want or services, I may subcontract somebody else to do them. And this is the majority of the local people. Because the direct contracts, many of them are going to be with the bigger companies. So the micro and small and medium enterprises that get subcontracts, for them, they must pay the VAT. So you can imagine the group there is disadvantaged. If it pays VAT, you know, it has nowhere it is going to claim it back because there is no input. Therefore, that VAT becomes an expense to them. So it means that it reduces their profits and therefore discourages the small and medium enterprises to participate in the local content, especially from a subcontracting perspective in the oil sector. So this mechanism, there should be a change. The change should be made quickly to ensure that whoever is a supplier, as long as they are able to be identified through the system, all right, then they should benefit from the tax exemptions, including the subcontractors.
Do cross-cutting areas also align with failure for tax penalties?
Yes, I think, again, last year there was an attempt to kind of like criminalize tax payment. The penalties were heavy and stuff like that. And I think it's not really a good thing. It goes back to what we said, that we should have a facilitative tax system. We should have a system that is welcoming and is ensuring that people come in and we work with them and then they pay their taxes. But because of an error in one area, I've written an invoice, for instance, there is a penalty. If you write an invoice and it is later found out that it was wrong, the penalties are so heavy, you know? So sometimes it could be an error. It may not be something that somebody intended to defraud the taxes, you know? It is a common error, and the penalties are like somebody is a criminal. So those things undermine the kind of relationship between the taxpayers and the tax collectors, which is a problem. So, as we said, yes, taxation should not be looked at from that perspective. It should be looked at from the humane perspective, from a facilitative perspective, from a business partner perspective. And that is when you will now have better yields, people who are happy to pay taxes, people who are growing their businesses and paying more, you know. And others from outside who are trying to come and say, let me also start business because the tax system is good, it is helpful, I'll have no problem.
As your conclusion remarks, maybe to broaden your insights on cross-cutting areas in regards to a predictable tax base, what do you advise or would say that the government should look more into this area to be able to maybe widen the tax base, or so that it can be able to create a sustainable economy?
I think very clearly our rallying call is one. It is important to pay taxes. Now, if it is important to pay taxes, there are two parties involved: the tax administrator, collector, and the taxpayer. How do we ensure that they are in harmony? You know? How do we ensure that the taxpayer is not suspecting the tax collector that this fellow is here to really disadvantage me? And how do we make sure that the tax collector is also ensuring that they are supportive of the taxpayers? They are not suspecting that by the time this guy discloses that they have sold 2 million shillings, maybe the sales were 4. They are under declaring, and therefore I should put something that is punitive to them. Or I should have investigations. Or I should have audits. Or I should, you know, those things undermine that relationship. So the job that we have is building that trust between the taxpayer and the tax collector. This is what will create a good tax system in the country, and it will encourage more compliance, and it will give us more tax yields, and we'll have more money in the country that supports our development agenda.
Thank you so much. I think that conversation will lead us to the end of Coffee Court, provided there is a good relationship between a taxpayer and a tax collector. There will be good tax administration measures. My name is Rona Nahabwe. Till next time.
And as we are summing up, let's have a recap of our top stories.
In business today, Parliament resolved to censure Minister Namuganza over misconduct, attacking the Speaker and other MPs. The private schools tuition dilemma continues as both parties refuse to budge ahead of the Cabinet's decision on school fees increment. Microfinance commits to support SACCOs in order to improve on household income and increase saving culture.
Now that brings us to the end of business today. It's Monday, the 23rd of January, 2023. Hope you had a blessed Monday business day, and we do wish you a blessed evening as well as a fruitful Tuesday tomorrow. Good evening. Have a good night.